Hi, this is a brief video about how to write conclusions for many of the essays you may have to write for college, as well as writing you might do in your everyday life. The goals of this video include to give you the purpose of conclusions and to give you some techniques you can start using right away. Eyeball. Eyeball. And yes, to clear up the question about what this eyeball stuff is all about. Hi, this is your English teacher Steve Rutledge. I'm looking forward to you learning a lot in this video. The purpose of a conclusion is to emphasize your main point in a memorable way. I often tell my students it's a lot like a crystal glass. I sometimes tell my students that a good conclusion is like a crystal glass. When you strike it or rub it, it will ring and then keep on ringing even after the strike. So nice. Did you catch how it kept ringing? That's what I'm talking about with the conclusion. It will keep on ringing in the reader's mind even after they finish reading. So let's talk about some of the techniques you can use to create this kind of ringing memory in your reader's mind. Just a reminder, my students recently studied the NFL concussions crisis, so the examples I'm going to give you today are from that unit on NFL concussions. The first technique you might use is you can offer a prediction of the future, or offer a solution, or ask a final question, or do them all at once. I guess that's really three techniques, isn't it? I'm going to make a positive prediction. What good could happen if we adopt a certain solution or mindset? Imagine we all agreed on the obvious facts that football as we know it is too harmful for our sons to play. The next thing we could decide is what could take its place? What could be the next sport that could have the flash and excitement and the drawing power of a Friday night football game? Could soccer take its place? Most of the world says yes. Or maybe a faster paced, less brutal version of football? Or maybe even something funky like paintball, a paintball team pictured to the right or above. Or laser tag, or futuristic obstacle courses that test teamwork, agility, and strength. Sort of like Hunger Games, but no one dies, and without the super risk of injury, and everyone still goes out for pizza afterwards? I can imagine having a blast with fewer injuries. Can you? So this is a positive prediction of the future. It offers thoughts about the positive things could happen if we adopt a certain mindset or a certain set of actions. Notice I do some of the things we've talked about with good writing. I give lots of specific examples. Soccer, paintball, futuristic obstacle courses. I even include a picture, but that picture, remember, is not just decoration. I talk about the picture in the text itself. Notice also that I do add a question on the end. Sometimes it's nice to ask your reader a question, and that will leave that final ring thought in their ears. You can also make a negative prediction. What will happen if we don't select a certain mindset or a certain set of actions? Maybe something negative will happen. Imagine if we keep sending our sons to play football. I know there are promises of better technology, but at the same time, kids keep getting bigger, faster, stronger. And I don't want my kid to be the guinea pig tested to see if a new helmet really works or not. If we don't change now, how many Iron Mikes will there be next? So again, this conclusion makes a negative prediction. What negative things could possibly happen? Also, I conclude by asking a question. A side note, Iron Mike was someone whom we studied in the NFL concussions unit who, because he played football so much, suffered traumatic brain injuries. Another powerful conclusion technique is you can make a tie back to the introduction. And this finally brings us back to the eyeball. What you're seeing here is actually the very opening scene to a very famous show called Lost that aired for about 6 seasons, and it ended a few years ago. If you had turned your television on the very first day of the very first show, the very first thing you would have seen is this eye. And it opens, and then we see some trees. And this is an effective opening because it creates a question. Remember, in introductions, you have to create interest. You got to capture interest. And so seeing this eye and seeing this jungle area and then seeing this man dressed in a suit and tie makes us wonder, what's going on? And makes us want to watch more. Here's the interesting thing. 6 seasons later, the producers return us to almost the exact same scene with a little bit of a twist. And where did we see that before? Well, of course, we saw that in the introduction. Same character, same eye, and this is what's called tying back to the conclusion. Some people call this book ending, and it's a powerful effect, and people use it often to create a sense of completion, whether it's in a paper or in this case in a show, and you can use it when you write your essays. If you remember from the introductions video, one of the techniques for introducing a paper is using Imagine This, where you get the person to imagine they're right inside the action. And I said, imagine you're playing in your high school senior homecoming game, the band is blaring, cheerleaders in bright orange are pumping their fists, moms and dads are yelling, "Come on, Tigers," and it goes on like that, this introduction, to put you in the middle of the action of a football game. Well, watch how I tie back to that conclusion in this style of concluding paragraph. Imagine you are back at the high school homecoming game. The band is blaring, cheerleaders pump their fists, parents in the stands spill Pepsi and yell, "Come on, Tigers!" You sprint down the sideline and leap into the end zone just past the outreach hands of your opponent. And with your fingertips, you make the catch, rolling to the ground. Oh, you'll feel a bruise and a few grass burns for that one, but nothing more. It was worth it as the crowd roars like the ocean and a sea of faces. Black, white, Hispanic, and Asian chant, "We're number one! We're number one!" You are also a young woman playing mixed ultimate frisbee. Why not? So this conclusion does several things. Remember, this is based on our NFL football unit where we were talking about how violent NFL football can be. And so this conclusion gives an alternative, ultimate frisbee, but it also does it in a way that ties back to the introduction. The introduction, I had the same scene of the cheerleaders pumping their fists, the parents, all that good stuff, but it just gives a twist at the end, doesn't it? Also notice I also combined this technique with asking a question at the end. You don't always ask a question at the end of every conclusion you write, but sometimes it fits nicely. This is the tie-back technique where you connect something from the introduction to something in the conclusion. I'm always telling my students to keep their radars open because you never know when something connected to the topic you're writing about might come up in the news or in a current event or in your own life. And in our case, just after we finished our NFL concussions unit, a player named Chris Borland retired after only 1 year of playing NFL football precisely because he was concerned about the concussions that happened while playing the game. So if you keep your radar up, you might find some current event that connects to what you're writing about, and you can use that as a powerful way to conclude your paper. Here's how I might have concluded this paper using the Chris Borland current event. For further evidence we should think twice about playing football, we can simply read the news. Former NFL player Chris Borland was drafted in the 3rd round and played 1 season in the NFL. And what a season he had! According to Rolling Stone, after getting his first start in the 7th week of his rookie season, Borland had more tackles per snap than anyone else in the NFL. Rolling Stone estimated he could have made around $40 million in the course of his career. However, despite the Kanye West-sized money, Borland looked at the potential of losing his brain health and quit the NFL just after 1 year. He's even returning most of his $600,000 signing bonus to the San Francisco 49ers. According to CBS.com, Chris Borland said, quote, "I was concerned about neurological disease down the road if I continued to play football. So I did a lot of research and gathered a lot of information, and to me, the decision made sense." Makes sense to me too. How about you? Does that conclusion leave a little ring in your ears? In summary, here's what we've learned about conclusions today. First, the goal of a conclusion is to emphasize your main point in a memorable way. There are several techniques for leaving the main idea ringing in your reader's ear. First, you can make a positive prediction of the future. Or you could make a negative prediction of the future. You could tie back to the introduction some way. You could tell a story, or give a memorable quote, or ask a question. Finally, keep that radar open because you might be able to connect to an outside example like a current event. Whatever you do, try to make your conclusion memorable. Bob. No, I can't do that to you again. Happy writing.